So good evening, everyone, and welcome to this presentation on how to advocate for your child. My name is Leslie, and I'm with the Federation for Children with Special Needs. And I've included my email address here on this first slide. So feel free to also email me after the presentation in case you have additional questions. I'm very excited to be here tonight and talk about this topic because I think it grew out of our work here at the Federation. I'm a parent of two children who went through school on IEPs. It's interesting that I learned tonight that the Walsh Center also supports gifted students, and one of my students was also gifted, and I had to learn to advocate for him also. Even though I had a background in the law, I felt that, and the Federation teaches a lot of workshops around your basic rights under the law and what this whole special education process is. I don't think we really taught you how to apply some of these strategies and law in your meetings with school district. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the soft skills around advocating for your child. For those of you who don't know the Federation at all, we are a nonprofit based in Boston. We hold the Federal Parent Training and Information Center grant, which allows us to be that free resource for both families and professionals. And you can either email us or call us with questions, talk about some of the options and strategies that you may want to employ as you navigate not only school systems, but the medical systems, the medical healthcare field. It's very complicated, and it's just nice to be able to talk to somebody. We provide a lot of trainings. We have conferences. We have a website. So there's lots of resources for you, and you shouldn't feel alone, that we're here and we're here to support you. So welcoming you. I hope tonight to define advocacy a little bit and help you understand, how do you apply this in all of the different systems that we have to deal with as parents. It's so important to know all of your rights and responsibilities, but also to know your child. Because we're going to be talking about like this concept of advocacy and negotiation, and really what are those communication skills that you might need or want to practice to be better at this. Ultimately, a lot of times we have to deal with conflict and realize that this is a natural part of the whole process. But I hope that all of my kind of slides tonight focus a little bit on the concept of building relationships. And we use family engagement best practices at the Federation and using our statewide framework to inform us as to how to work together to support all students. And at the end, I have some resources. So really, what is advocacy? And it's very simple. It's really, standing up or speaking up for someone else. And as parents, we often are called in lots of different circumstances to advocate for our children. It can be in a school setting. It could be in a doctor's office. It could be when you're standing in the recreation line to sign up your kid and they said, no, he can't take that program, and you have to advocate why. So there's lots of times where you need to speak up. And I hope that you can recall a story where you advocated for yourself and look on it and see, what was successful? Why was it successful? And hopefully you have a good story and not just a lot of, barriers that you faced along the way. I shared this picture of a parent who was a superhero with a cape and, charging forward and really being that advocate. And it comes from a PTA website where a young girl has written an essay on her parent as an advocate for her and how that really impacted her. It helped her along the way, but it also taught her to be an advocate as she works with students and her own children. So the power of advocacy and how it will inform the next generation and be a model for the youth that we're advocating for. So there's all this power in advocacy. And I see it as a very powerful word because you really are bringing the needs and concerns of someone who cannot speak for themselves to the table. And I hope that you all realize that it's okay to speak up if you have concerns or to ask questions. I think that's if it's done in a respectful way, it's an essential part of the process. And don't be intimidated by those who may be in another leadership position in an organization or in a school district. You should feel that you can ask questions and advocate and bring concerns forward. I hope that you all understand that we are dealing with very complicated systems, and our experiences are influenced by lots of different dynamics. I'm using this cultural iceberg graphic, an example, which shows an iceberg in water and what you can see above the waterline and what you cannot see below the waterline. So we always can kind of see what someone looks like, the color of their eyes and their hair. You can hear the language that they're speaking, and you can see a lot, and that's things that you can observe. But we really may not understand that there's so much more coming into play in these relationships. There's lots of dynamics. You don't really, unless they're revealing it, you don't really know what their core beliefs are or their values and their attitudes and their perceptions. So there's lots of things under the waterline. And I think our goal in working with someone and forging these relationships and starting to advocate is to see where that person is coming from, is to build that trusting relationship with them, to learn more about them, because you really want to affect some of the things that are more systemic. And so that means that you need to really understand where all of this is coming from to be able to impact change in policies, procedures, and rules. And that's where I think, we want all of those practices to be better informed, to have the parent voice at the table, to have the student voice at the table, to bring experience and be reflective of the needs of families. And so that's why I think understanding the system is where you need to start, and realize you are in a system. How can you learn more about that system? Ask for the policies, ask for the rules. A lot of times we work with families whose students get in trouble with in high school around discipline. And I said, have you read the school handbook? All the rules are right there. And so you can really read through and get a better sense of what you're up against and what, violations of the rules are in certain circumstances. How do you communicate with different people in the systems? I advocate a lot for special education parent advisory councils in my work at the Federation, and I ask them to set up a system of communication so that families know, who do I speak to first? Who's the first person of contact? And efficiently work through that system rather than always going to the top, where the principal might say, well, I have to talk to the teacher. I can't talk to you first. Let me find out. And so understanding the communication structure, understanding what each person's role is in whatever system it is, because you really want to know ultimately who has the authority to give you what you need. Who do I talk to? Who's going to be the decision maker? Is there a policy and procedure, or is it just the way they've always done things? And you have to ask about the rules and the policies. And understanding that there's also a personality there. And sometimes that person may be facing roadblocks in other areas, and they're bringing that kind of frustration to your setting and your concerns. They might have had a bad day, and we're all human. And so really understanding the whole system and the people in the system is that background that you might need as you start to advocate for different things in different places. At the Federation, we really are very adamant about you understanding your rights and your responsibilities. And so it is a very, very difficult system, and you can't learn it all in one day. And so you really need to start attending some workshops, start asking questions, ask for explanations as you go along the way. We speak another language in special education. We have lots of acronyms like FAPE and the LRE. So you need to know that's the free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. And what does that mean? So there are lots of terms to learn, and don't be embarrassed that you don't know, because it's hard, and it's a learned kind of vocabulary as you go along. If you're not, English is not your first language, really ask for an interpreter. You have a right to an interpreter in school meetings, and the right to translated materials and reports. And even though you have some command of English, I hope that you have an interpreter so that you can get the full information in your native language to fully understand what decisions you might have to make, or what material that you need to understand to be able to be part of a meeting. There are lots of laws and regulations, and that's something that you can always ask. Lots of different organizations provide legal assistance, and will share with you what the law says so that you can understand what that means. But I hope that you all remember that you are the expert on your child. As a parent, you have information that's so important that other people don't have. And so if you're a part of a decision-making team, you're an equal member of that team, because you bring expertise to the table, and that's your expertise as a parent. So I encourage you to keep learning all the time, because they go through lots of different systems and changes, from early intervention to preschool to school, elementary school, and then as they end middle school and into high school, they become a transition age student, and we start looking at preparing them for life after high school. So all of these phases have different kinds of perspectives and decision making. And so the Federation, you can just come to one of our online workshops. There's a calendar link there, and you can just register and attend. On any given evening, we're doing lots of different workshops, and you're welcome to come over and over again. I hope that you continue dialogue with your child, or at least to the best capacity of your child to interact with. And if your child is nonverbal, there's a lot of nonverbal communication that you can start to document, what they like and what they don't like. Where's your child struggling? So if you can have a meeting to discuss with them, they might be sharing some new information with you as to what's working for them in school, or in a program at the Y, or in their scout group, or in a church group. Everything is a little different for them, and understanding what's working and what's not, and that behavior, because behavior is communication. And so we should respect how they're reacting to different situations, and help them understand how to communicate that, because you really need to understand your child's needs. A lot of times you're going to be looking for appropriate accommodations. How can the student get access to either the physical space, or the curriculum, or the group, and you need to know their needs, and you can then advocate for appropriate accommodations so that they can access what they need to access on any given time. So that's keeping that open dialogue going, which as a parent, I can tell you it's a little bit more difficult in the teen years, but really being open and honest with your young people, and encouraging them to start to advocate for themselves when appropriate. We have a phrase at the Federation: if it isn't in writing, it didn't happen. So having that great documentation, I think we all live very, very busy lives. And so keeping a record, keeping notes of conversations, of things that happen, I think is a really good idea. Pull out a notebook and just start. We get copies of everything. There's lots of reports and papers and progress reports. And I kept a lot of examples of work that both my sons did in school. So I would have actual examples to reinforce some of my concerns. So you had to organize all of that, save the records, make a binder, do file folders, do it chronologically, add a paper clip and add a note to permanent records. So you don't want to write on the record, but you can add your own notes to that. And we try to encourage you to document all conversations. So if you have a phone conversation with someone and you've come to some kind of understanding, send an email follow-up saying, thanks for the phone call on Tuesday. I understand now that you'll be doing this for 10 additional minutes for the next 2 months, so we can see how that goes. I look forward to speaking to you again in January. So you document it. And so now, if that wasn't the agreement, hopefully you'll get a follow-up email in opposition to that. But if not, you have the conversation, the agreement documented in an email. You are always looking in this documentation because a lot of times you're going to ask, like, especially if they're introducing a new program or anything new or a new behavioral strategy, it's like, where's your student right now? Where's your child? What's their functional performance, their academic performance, their behavioral performance right now? Because if I know where I'm at, I know where I can plan to. I know where we can set some targets. I know what would be an appropriate kind of, challenging goal so that we all can work hard to help build that student's skills in whatever case. And that could even be on a sports team. What is the young person doing now, and how are you going to work with that coach to help build the skill level up so that that student then can really achieve what they're looking to achieve in that arena, in that area. So I'm trying to broaden this advocacy work, because you'd be so surprised the venues where you may have to advocate for your child outside of school. And often their disability has to be explained. Their needs and accommodations have to be explained. And there's some kind of give and take there so that the student can have a positive experience in whatever community setting that they're in. And I think that's my goal in a lot of this advocacy work, is like, is the student participating as fully as possible in whatever setting they're in, with as many neurotypical peers, whatever that means, with their peers, so that they can have the full experience and be exposed to lots of different viewpoints, ideas, different learning approaches, and building skills, because we really want them to go out and really take advantage of what's in the community. And sometimes that means advocating for them to take a chance in a challenging kind of environment, but maybe we just need to add more supports. So one of the things I hope you learn is that you can't deal with everything all at once. So where's your priorities? Maybe something's more urgent than a non-urgent. When I went to my first IEP meeting, I had 35 things I wanted to accomplish. And I learned it was probably 2 or 3 things that we could work on at any given time. Understand that you have an emotional kind of investment in all of this. And it's difficult. And you need to kind of practice gauging, lowering your emotions so that you can be an effective advocate in lots of different settings. And I think preparation is key to that. If you have good talking points, some questions written down, you can always rely on that, especially if emotions take over in a meeting, and you can resort to your notes and resort to the structure that you have laid out, that you want to bring the priorities to whatever decision making has to happen in that meeting. So the art of negotiation is really, what do you want to achieve? And, what's that process going to look like? So I just talked about how it helps to write down what you want to talk about, because that focuses you and puts you on, like, this is what's the most important. I think sometimes we need to maybe convince others and think one step ahead. And so if you have a proposal that you're trying to bring forward, maybe a list of reasons why that would be beneficial, so that they can see it as you see it, as like, oh, well, this will help in this way, and this will build this skill, and this will expose my child to this type of learning, so that you can share your positive perspective with whoever is part of that team, knowing that maybe you might have to have some fallback options, so that understanding that, reach high, set great expectations for your dialogue, but understand that reality might set in, and where's your fallback position, because I think you might have to find that middle ground. We don't get everything we want. The key, and it's here we go with that relationship, is we're trying to build relationships with different parties in our world. And so you really can't storm out of a meeting and say, I'll never talk to you again, because you'll see them again. Or their influence is within the system. So that I advise you not to burn your bridges, to maybe say, gee, I need to take a break, and maybe we can come back in a week and revisit this, because I want to do some more thought on it. Allow yourself the time to rethink and to take in more information and data, rather than just breaking the relationship and breaking off. The bottom line is really try to keep things simple, is focus on what's important. What's the one thing that's holding your child back? And that's, the one thing you really want to work on: the skill set, the environment, the curriculum, the learning, the whatever it is. That's where you want to focus on, and try to not be pulled into different directions, and be focused. I think rather than putting people into different positions, or even yourself into a position, is identifying your interests and their interests, and where do we find that common ground. Sometimes it means that you need to bend a little bit, adapt, and hear different things. So being flexible allows you to reach agreement often. And so you're looking for where are we both in agreement, and how can we build on that? And I think that's a nice place to be in a meeting that might have some conflict, is finding that sense of common interests, and it allows you then to brainstorm and work together, and ask, like, gee, now that we are in agreement on this point, where do you see that going? Where do you see that leading to? And allow that brainstorming, the openness of new ideas, rather than being stuck in one position and advocating without bending. I think sometimes you need to evaluate different options. And I encourage families sometimes, if they're reaching that kind of roadblock, is to also be open to trial periods or pilots of therapy, behavioral strategies, placement environments, whatever it is can we try that? And what would be a good time period for that, for us to collect data, to then come back together and see what was working and what isn't working. And so you're being open, and you're working, and you're showing that you're willing to try certain things. And I think that's a good position to be in. You're not committing, you're not giving away things, but you're allowing more information and data to come forward through a short-term pilot. Just put some parameters around the time for that. I think the key to all of this is keeping lines of communication open. And I love this picture because it's not using effective communication. One party is definitely roaring in another's ear, and I don't think it's leading to a good conversation. I'm sharing this character of the Chinese word for the verb to listen. And it is, I think it's beautiful because it uses 4 elements. And we often think of listening with our ears. But you also need your eyes because so much information is maybe nonverbal language that is being communicated. We need to give people our undivided attention and really listen. And the last piece here is your heart. And this is what I was talking about, is be open to possibilities. Be open to listening to what someone has to say and understanding where it's coming from. This is not possible for everyone, but it's just one tool and one thought for you to have is as you are starting to have difficult conversations, is how do I listen? And am I listening with not only my ears, my eyes, my undivided attention, but also with my heart? Because you really want to remain curious and keep learning. By keeping the dialogue going, you learn more. So by listening respectfully, you're building trust among people, and people will now share more information and talk with you. Watch your nonverbal body language. I'm a person who crosses my arms and looks very closed, and I have to positively remember to, be soft in my body language, smile, show that attention. While you're doing this, you can be considering, the possible responses and plan for them so that you can react well. Anytime you feel uncomfortable, one great strategy is ask questions for clarification. So you mean that when you recommend this, my child will do that? And, am I understanding this correctly? And have people repeat things and really explain things to you so that you are getting clear information. You can summarize and restate it back. So you're proposing X, am I correct? And whatever. Use that as a strategy, as a tool. So you will not only get clarifying information, you'll get better understanding, but it gives you a little bit of time, especially if you've heard something that you're not comfortable with. It gives you a little bit of time to start thinking of like, ooh, how am I going to respond? And where am I going to go next? You can present options in a more collaborative way, rather than you should be providing this program. It says, we can maybe work together to provide opportunities, using the word we so that you are building that teamwork and that trusting relationship, rather than saying, yes, but it's not going to work. It's yes, and can we collect data, or can we try this? And that's where you add your point that you wanted to make so that you're agreeing and adding on. It's much more collaborative than saying no. It's not a lot more collaborative than saying, but it's not going to work and going down the negative route. So by asking questions and really active listening, you can gain a lot of information. So I'm hoping that you'll be very assertive and, really champion and advocate for someone or your child, but not be aggressive. So try to gauge and be mindful of your emotions. I used to practice with another parent because I'm somebody who gets emotional and would start to raise the tone of my voice to the extent where you could tell that I was not happy. Trying to be clear in your communication so that they understand where you're coming from, and that this two-way communication happening back and forth. If you can refer to any data or facts from evaluations or reports or charts, a lot of systems speak data. And so data tells a story. And if you can learn to interpret data, bring data forward, data is factual a lot of times, or it's, subjective observations. You might have your own data that you can bring to the table to, be in a counterpoint. But having a structured collection of data demonstrates that you're interested, involved, and you're bringing new information to the table. I hope that you act in a way that you like the other party to reciprocate. And that's that respectful tone that I think we should try to keep in a meeting, especially if there is some conflict or some disagreement, because we can't expect perfection. We only can come forward with, hopefully, a mutually vested agreement to move forward. Conflict is natural. And so how do we protect the relationship with this team, with this person? Because you're coming from different perspectives, and maybe there's some resources in play, so that there may be some conflict. So how do we manage it? I see it almost as a sign of maybe we should try different things or change, or maybe an opportunity for growth or different understanding, or bringing someone else to the table so that there's a third point of view. Don't always see conflict in a negative tone. It's natural, it's going to happen, and how can we use it to expand our knowledge, our data, our information, be creatively thinking about different resources or different options. So it's just a place for you to spring into, okay, how are we going to overcome this impasse? I'm not saying that sometimes conflict is, you will meet hit an impasse, and you may need to step away, bring in other types of resources like an advocate, an attorney, someone else. There are times when you're just not going to reach agreement, and I always think that you should understand all of your options, especially in special education, but it could be also in healthcare, that you might want to have a third opinion to help inform you or inform those who are making those decisions. I'm going to go through a couple of tools here that may help you just change the way you normally do things or open up a new avenue for you. So an I statement is just a tool that focuses on the feelings of the speaker. So it basically says, this is how it looks from my perspective. And so if you're challenged and you're feeling backed into a corner, and you feel like you don't have a lot of say in the way the conversation is going, you can kind of come forward and express how this is making you feel. And so I feel confused or saddened when you talk about my son attending this program or following this skill kind of set thing, because why? And then what I really need is to understand how this will benefit him. Or so you're taking the interest away and you're bringing your perspective forward, but from an emotional standpoint. So hopefully there's a little empathy built around the fact that you have emotion on this, and sometimes it helps you de-escalate your emotions because you name it, and you ask for a potential solution. What I need, or what would I benefit from, or what would help in this circumstance, that something that they may not have even thought of. And so you're not only identifying how it's making you feel and your perspective, but maybe a possible solution. So this is one tool and technique where you can advocate well, using your emotions, I think, in a very positive way. And I don't think it lessens your status as an advocate. I think it clearly defines your perspective. It might also trigger the other side to share their perspective. and their emotions, which I think would be a really interesting conversation. Some tips to do when you see conflict arising is to really kind of keep your cool and communicate as effectively as possible. If you can bring someone else to the meeting, that's great. We always advocate that you don't go to a meeting alone, that you bring a friend, someone to take notes, someone to kick you under the table when you're going off your priority list, so that you can remain clear and concise and be prepared to have that good dialogue. And sometimes it takes a while. So being patient, and it's hard. It's really hard. That's why preparation and practice and having someone in the room with you is all good strategies to be successful in a meeting. Our family engagement research is really amazing because it boils down to the very simple concept that when families and schools work together, kids do better. They like school, they stay in school longer, and they have better outcomes. So how do we use this tenet to really build and understand that you need a relationship with this team that you're working with? Hopefully you'll learn their names and their role at the meeting or before the meeting, so that you can identify why they're there and what they have to contribute to the conversation. Being open to ideas, helping maybe the team understand that shared history of where you have been and where you are going, and celebrate any successes along the way. I'm hoping that we try to help people be their best. My mom was an elementary school teacher, and she loved those kids, and she really tried, and it was really hard. And there were good days and bad days. So, how do you help somebody who's having a bad day be their best, and maybe, take a break and meet on another day? Because I really think that anyone who goes into education, it's all about students. They're not making millions. They're there to help students learn, and it is challenging. And lately, we've seen a lot of challenges in our schools, during COVID and post-COVID. And so, how do we understand some of the challenges that are happening on the inside of schools, so that we can help them be their best? I'm a parent who sought a supportive network and started a CPAC in my community. There are disability-specific groups. Any kind of parent organization within your school system is there to support the system, the schools, the parents, the families, the students. Get involved, talk to parents, your PTO or PTA. A lot of people, if you're on Facebook, there's lots of online groups where you can ask questions, and people will share good information and experience. So many parents are ahead of you. And I love this expression, they know the ropes. It comes from sailing, like which sail to pull to keep your course going steady. They've seen it before, and they can tell you, well, this is what reading programs look like in middle school. So important as you're planning and working with your team to get your student ready for middle school. So they not only can give you good information, but they can provide that emotional support. And so I'm a real big fan of CPACs, the special education parent advisory councils. Every school district is required to have one. And I've just shared Framingham's Facebook page and their website, just so you can see an example of what a parent group is doing to help families navigate systems within their school. So some final tips, try to stay optimistic. I know it's hard. We try to encourage our families to be positive, persistent, and persuasive, the 3 Ps. Be as reasonable as possible. It's really hard to argue with someone who's making a reasonable response. I always check myself. What am I asking for is reasonable? Then they really can't turn me down. We might navigate some nuances around it, but if it's reasonable and it's moving that student forward, I've got a good chance to move it forward. Practice with a friend. If you can help your student advocate for themselves, that goes a really long way. So as appropriate for the student's developmental age, involving them in team meetings, in decision-making meetings, and bringing their vision and their voice to the table, really, really important. And it's a life skill. They'll use it the rest of their lives in different environments. After a meeting, evaluate what worked and what didn't. And maybe next time you'll be ready. And you'll see maybe where you didn't anticipate something. And always send a thank you note. So my mom's 93, and she has thank you notes from her families and students through the years. And she cherishes those because it was just a nice way of connecting to a student and a family. And she just finds those very valuable in her life experience. So send the thank you note. They save them. I love this series. So I have a couple resources here at the end, 2 books, but I wanted to highlight the cadre works.org. And I'm sorry, I can't remember what cadre stands for, but it's dispute resolution, a nonprofit, and they have these wonderful working together series modules, and there's self-directed courses, there's some videos, and it's all about working together, and they do it well. It's free, it's online, and it helps you just see some circumstances kind of in real time, and it's just a really nice learning tool. So I do have 2 books that I would recommend: Getting to Yes and The Art of Negotiation. You can ask for these through your library system, and read them, read parts of them. Sometimes it's just working through some of this so that you are prepared to enter into a situation where you're going to have to advocate. And I hope you do it from a position of strength and confidence, and a little bit of wonder that hopefully you'll get a good resolution that'll help move things forward. So this is one of the best ways to reach the Federation is we have a phone number, we have a regular line at 1-800-9. This is our website, but also you're welcome to complete an intake form and someone will get back to you. And that might just be a better way for you to communicate and ask your questions. And we love your questions because we learn so much when you ask questions. So please keep them coming. So thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hopefully there's lots of questions.
So Leslie, we have one question so far. It says, "Hi Leslie, I graduated from your 2014 parent advocacy training. I wonder if the FCSN has considered curriculum to train students on how to self-advocate. I co-led a student advocacy program through Learning Ally in Massachusetts, and it was amazing. As a parent of a boy on an IEP, it was powerful to watch them effectively self-advocate equals life skills."
Yay. So we have an 8-week course, which is a parent consultant training class to help families understand a little bit more about the whole special education system. And if they want to move into more of an advocacy role, it's kind of a foundation. But I totally agree with you that we need to do more for our young people. So at the Federation, we have modified our Planning a Life conferences, which we just did in the fall. And on Saturday, it used to be a 2-day for parents only. And on Saturday now, we have a youth programming and planning in the morning. So it's 1 day virtual, and the Saturday, it's for parents and student. And so the students get together, there's activities, we bring in different speakers for them so that they can start understanding some of the ways to self-advocate, what a vision means, maybe how to write their own vision. We also have a youth strand that's separate now from our Visions of Community Conference, our annual conference in March, which is still virtual, but we have moved the youth conference to an in-person conference. And last year we did it at our offices in Boston. I think we had about 30 youth who came. We split them. They did some joint activities, and then we also split them up so that students who are on track to graduate with a diploma and maybe go on to college focused and worked with some people from an accessibility office in a college, so that they would understand what the colleges were looking for and how they would approach those offices. Students who were staying in the 18 to 22 program, we did some advocacy work on helping them understand their accommodations and how to talk to people who are working with them as to what they liked and what they didn't like. You know, that whole self-advocacy, it doesn't spring from the magic of, yes, just do it. It's a learned art also. And so we have started to work with students. We are also doing a Connecting Youth event. I think it's the first Tuesday of every month at 5 p.m. It's a virtual kind of meet and greet, and they have a topic for discussion. And I have not been able to attend, but I've heard really good things about it. And we're trying to build a community of youth to start to teach one another and to share. We also have, I think there's 4 now, youth advisors at the Federation who are sitting in on some of our planning meetings and telling us what direction we should go in. So we're just starting to do that. I think it's a really, really great idea. I'm going to look into Learning Allies, a program around things. So someone here is from the Federation. She's going the second Tuesday of the month from 5:30 to 6:30. Thank you, Rebecca. I think that's you. So if you follow us on Facebook at the Federation, a lot of these events are posted there and happening. But I think I'm really proud of the work that we're doing to involve youth, because I think the concept is nothing about us without us, and we need to stop and listen. Those students, whether you're going to a day hab program with DDS or to a community college, both of those young people have to start to work with the adults that are in those environments and talk to them about the accommodations they need to be successful, and what is working and what is not working to the best of their ability. So we need to practice those skills in high school.
Next question. What strategy do you recommend if the school's testing isn't aligned with an independent assessment testing?
So that's the battle of the experts, really. It's we recommend at the Federation that if you have independent testing, that you ask that person who did the assessments to defend their conclusions in a meeting so that they can attend by phone or virtually or in person. And then that way you as the parent aren't saying, well, Dr. So-and-so said this. They're actually there and bringing that information forward. That might be a place for a third opinion, or taking 2 opinions and how do we come together in consensus. I think it's best if they have the experts battle it out, and you stand on the sideline as the parent with your parent expertise.
Next question. Hi, Leslie. My child is in middle school, and the challenges I'm running into is that their IEP team seems very unmotivated, overworked, checked out. It's been hard to get answers to questions or the IEP team to make progress on anything coming out of the IEP. How do I advocate and motivate?
Okay. Well, tonight's answer will be, because on any given night, there's different approaches. I would involve the young person if possible, if they can come to the meeting, because it's really hard for a young person to start to talk about what they want to learn next year and have people in the room not get either excited about it or ask questions. So using your young person as the catalyst for better conversation in a meeting. I have tried that, and it worked much better when my son attended and started to talk about how this worked for him. The other thing is to really focus on one thing maybe, and really try to get the team coalesced around building a skill, because IEPs are really just what are the skills that that student's going to work on that year to get them to the next level. And it's all skill building. And so asking some good questions, teasing out their expertise, like, what do you think would help this student to develop this skill or so? Come to that meeting as a really positive force, with a lot of enthusiasm for the process, and don't be dragged down, and try bringing your youth. And if that doesn't work, contact me and we'll try something else.
I would just second that. I bought my daughter, she attended her first IEP meeting in third grade, and it definitely changes the tone. There was things that I had said over and over again, and then she said it and they made changes. So yeah, it definitely motivates people. So I second that. Next question. What happens if you have an excellent, high qualified, experienced advocate, and the advocate is recommending that you don't do so much listening and compromising and being nice?
Depends on the situation. I speak from the perspective that not every family can afford to have an advocate or an attorney at the table, so that they have to come to the table as their own advocate, you know. And there are times when you need to be assertive and persistent, and you can still be positive. I think laying out reasons why you're advocating for a certain position with some good data and some strong arguments. You can still be respectful, and you're not, I don't think, caving in. There's also options for mediation. So one meeting is not the end all and be all. You can try things, you can put things in as small, short pilots. You can also reject certain items and go to mediation. And I have found the mediators in our state are very good. They also give free workshops. And I encourage you to attend one of the mediation workshops to understand what that process is and how that might benefit you. Because now you have a neutral third party bringing two sides together to find those common interests. And sometimes you need that. I went to mediation twice.
Next question. How to advocate when the team has already decided on the services they are going to offer during the IEP meeting?
So that they might come with a draft of an IEP, but they really are not allowed to predetermine that, because you as the parent by law are an equal member of the team. So if you are if the practice of the district is to have a draft IEP, see if you can get it in advance so that you are aware of what they are proposing. So now you have more knowledge, you understand where they're going, and then now you have an opportunity to come up with strategies to redirect some of those kind of directions and goals. Ask lots of clarifying questions. Remember, you do not sign anything in a meeting. You take that back and you reflect on it, and you might want to get some more information, more data. But come to the meeting and even announce, like, I'm so glad we're meeting today to go over this draft so that we can, as a team, set the skills for next year. Then now you're just laying it right on the table. That's the role of the team, is to work together to set those goals. And thank you for the draft. And here's my questions. So I think that's one way of kind of turning the tables and taking control of that meeting and your priorities.
So do we have any more questions out there? I think we just got something.
There's lots of good comments in the chat. I'm trying to watch them also. You know, reiterating that don't sign anything at the meeting. You know, drafts are just a draft. And there's lots of opportunity for you to, even when you get the IEP in the mail from the school after your meeting and you have some questions, you can always call the Federation, any other you know, organization. There's Mass Advocates for Children. You can call your local ARC. You can call Disability Law Center. There's family resource centers. There's lots of people that can help you work through some of your questions or help you organize some of your strategies and options on how you would respond. And just knowing what all of your options are, I think is really good for all families to have as they advocate and negotiate, is understanding where you're going with all of this. And understanding also that if something isn't working, you can call another team meeting and ask for an amendment of an IEP because things are not working. And hopefully you'll ask them to collect data around some areas of concern that you have around interventions and strategies, so that you, because sometimes you may be surprised it is working. But if you're asking for data and the data shows it's not working, well, then that's a good conversation.
Any other questions? I'm just gonna give it a minute, see if any other questions come in.
One came directly to me, was they said that their independent testing team would not come to the IEP meeting. So that's the question that we say to the families before you pay that money for all that testing is, you know, how getting a piece of paper, getting a report is only so much. Having, you know, paying a little bit extra and having come and defend their findings at a meeting is really key. It's really hard to have a report on the table. And frankly, you know, that's not my expertise. I'm not a psychologist or whatever, you know, I don't have that background. So I can read a report, but I can't interpret it in the same way as the person who is licensed to give those tests. So that's the first question you ask them. And then also relay to them that the school district rejected all of their findings and that maybe it would be beneficial to your child if they help to advocate for them in a meeting. And that could be 15 minutes. Don't give up.
Any other questions? Apart from school evaluations, where else can I get my kids' academic evaluated for DTA?
I don't know what DTA is.
Oh, sorry.
No, is that Department of
data.
Transitional Authority or just data? Oh, so there are people who do independent evaluations. There are also educational advocates. So my older son was a student with dyslexia, and I found at one point I used an educational advocate who was able to do some of the testing and then bring some of that information and data. And she had a higher level of understanding of how dyslexia affects a student. Fluency, that was an area that we were really struggling with, and it was beyond me. And so there are different types of advocates, and she was an educational advocate. So it wasn't so much of somebody who is advocating for your legal rights in a meeting, but somebody who is bringing an educational perspective to the meeting. So that's out there. I know there are lots of agencies, for example, Easter Seals, that will do an assistive technology evaluation, because that's another element in this whole thing is there technology that would benefit your student? And not every school district has the expertise in all of those areas. And so you want to bring in an expert who might have that specific access to information and testing and evaluations around that topic. This is not my area of expertise, folks, so I'm trying, but there are other types of advocates out there.
Okay, so one more wait time for any questions before I make announcements and thank Leslie.
I'm just going to put my email in the chat, my name and email. Please, if you haven't had a chance or you think of something in the middle of the night, reach out to me by email. If I can't answer, I'll help you find somebody who can, and help you understand what your options are. And I think that's the best thing we can do, is we keep moving forward. And this year just may not be the most successful year, but we're going to learn and grow and continue on. And hopefully the next time, we're more informed and we have more experience. So we're there for you at the Federation. And I really thank the Chris Walsh Center for bringing this community together, because I think that's the other thing. As parents connect to other parents, they will share their experiences, maybe some of their, what worked, what some of the outside resources were that they maybe brought to the table, creative problem solving. I think in today's world, we need more ideas on the table.
So while I have you guys all as a captive audience just for a couple more seconds, I want to thank Leslie, but I also want to make an announcement that we have another webinar coming out on December 4th. It's Let's Talk About It, Overcoming Roadblocks in Caregiver-Child Relationship. And it's about talking about communication strategies. Again, if you haven't already signed up for our newsletter, we'll send it out, but we'll also send information out to everyone with the recording of tonight's session, just in case there's any information that you didn't get. Yeah, but I'd like to thank you guys all for attending your first Chris Walsh Center event. And Emily has just put a survey in the chat function. If you can take a minute to fill out the survey, we greatly appreciate it. We'll also email that out to you. Where the Federation does their sessions for free, but we're also offering free professional development, and the grants that we get rely on the fact that we have data. So you guys taking a minute to fill out surveys help us get more funding so we can keep providing free resources for you guys.
We rely on the evaluations also for our funding, state and federal. So it's part of the process, folks, and it helps us improve. So thank you for completing the evaluation.
And Natalie just put the link in for the next session. So with that, I'd like to say good night. And if the grad students can just hang out for a minute, that'd be great.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm going to stop recording.